Hello, everyone. I wanted to walk you through some of this renaming files assignment. So, there are a lot of good tutorials on YouTube for learning Python, and I have one that works with some file names. And when the original tutorial was made, I didn't make it, somebody else did. Um, he was using a .py script and working with a folder on his local computer. And so much is moving to cloud resources. I wanted to still have you do the tutorial, but do it with a Jupyter Notebook in on Google Colab. So I have a link to um, I have a Jupyter Notebook in this repository. So this is the assignment repository. You're gonna fork this by clicking the fork button so you get your own copy. And then you're going to have a Jupyter Notebook in there. And we're going to open that up in Google Colab. So if you're going to Google Colab for the first time, you'll want to, if you go to Google Colab, just search for it. And if you go to the welcome screen, you click on GitHub. And I've already been doing some stuff, and so it comes up with my repository. And then you'll see my GitHub account, and then you'll see down here in repository, if it already comes up for you, it's going to list your repositories, and they're going to be in alphabetical order. Just be aware that capital letters come before lowercase letters, and so let's see. This is where it's going to be this file name too. And you might be able to just put the URL right in there, but if you get to your repository and then have to search for the name, they're alphabetical. So I'm not gonna, I already have this open right here, so we're gonna look at that. So, I thought this would be good. This tutorial goes through and works with some files and folders on your computer, and I wanted to just give you a little bit of extra background about working with files and folders. And back in the day, when computers were getting going, when I was a younger person, I feel like I'm giving you guys a history lesson for those that aren't as old as I am. Things pretty much worked in the command line, and I'll just open a command prompt up just so you can see it. This was a command prompt in DOS machines. DOS stood for Disk Operating System. It was a text-based system, and you pretty much had to have the commands memorized that would show you things. dir was a popular one that show you the directory and the things you could look at, but basically there was not much there to prompt you. You just kind of had to remember the commands. It's been used a lot of times. People got really fast at this. So, and then Apple and Windows and Microsoft came along and started making graphical user interfaces, which were a little more intuitive for many people to use. And so that's what we use today as a graphical user interface, or a GUI. I'm just going to use the word GUI from now on. And you can work with things. I'm going to go here in Documents, and here's an example folder I made. If you're inside of Windows, I'll just go into it. You can make a new folder here in the Windows Explorer. You can click on New Folder, and it will add that in there, and you can name it. You can also make new items, and you can do folders or documents, several types of documents, or you can always open up an application, then save it in a particular folder. In Windows, you can also right-click inside of there, and down under New, you also have the options for doing new folders and new files, and I'm going to explain a little bit why I'm showing you this, because we have some files that we needed to create for this tutorial. Macs, I don't own a Mac currently. I did many years ago, but it's been decades since I've owned one. I did link you guys to a couple tutorials in a Mac. That command prompt is called a terminal, and Mac users don't typically use the terminal as much as Windows users might use the command prompt, and many Windows users never use the command prompt. But I did. You can create folders and files in your Mac from both the GUI and the command prompt, although it's a little more complicated in a Mac than it'd be nice if it were easier, but you guys have a few hoops to jump through. But I wanted to give you this background just because in informatics you're going to work with a lot of files, and being able to know how to, navigate around them a little bit in both the GUI and the command prompt or terminal is advantageous. So that's kind of our personal computers, and we can actually work with, cloud resources. GitHub has a GUI you can work with. If I wanted to add a file to this repository, I could click here by the code button, and this is a big plus button, and I could either create a new file or upload a file, and that's something I could do. And let's just take a look at the original files in here. You'll see this has the original files expanded, and there are a number of .txt files. That file extension .txt just stands for text. It's a very generic text file. If I got into there, I could actually just edit this, and these are actually empty. I don't have any text in these files at all. If I was in the original files, I'll go ahead and just add one here so you can see one, and create new file, and you'll see that I am inside of a folder here. If I made another folder and did a slash, it would put me there. If I don't want it, I can just backspace and get out. And let's make a okay, so there is a file name, and I'm just going to say commit changes and hit commit changes, and you won't see that in the tutorial because I just made that up, but there's another text file. So very easy to work with in GitHub. There is no command prompt because you would do that on your personal machine, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. I just want to show you a little bit of how to work with some files here in GitHub. So and you can manually upload and download files in GitHub that way. Google Colab, you can also work with files in Google Colab, and there's a bit of a graphical user interface in terminal. So here in Google Colab, you'll see these icons on the left-hand side, and if you hover over them, it'll tell you what they are. And this one is the files, and I have some extra things here. We're going to see it in just a minute, but normally this would just come up and say sample data, and there are things in there, and you can, I think, click in there and do a new folder inside or create a new file. If you're outside of that folder, if you right click there, you can create a new folder or new file. So it's pretty intuitive to navigate. But something that you're going to want to know how to do is get the path to a folder or a file. So if I'm here in this sample data, you'll see there's these 3 dots over here, and if I click on the 3 dots, I can copy a path. And you're going to need to know how to do this for your assignment. So the terminal in GitHub you don't access directly, but you can pass commands in a code block to the terminal. And that's done by putting this exclamation point in front of it. And so I use a couple git commands here. This virtual machine that Google brings up to run this notebook has a terminal basically built into it, and so you can with git installed. And so this is the git command to clone a repository, and you will want to put your repository name right there. I will probably get rid of this name so you don't use the master one, because you'll want your repository to work inside of your repository. So I'll delete this name out when I'm done, and you'll need to replace it. In fact, I'll go ahead and put, let's just change that right now. When I ran this, you'll see that it actually went cloned and it got the repository, and you'll see that this folder that came up, if you run this, you might need to hit that refresh button, a little circle with the arrow, and you'll see the repository name come up, and there will be this copy files won't be there, but the original files and the other files from the GitHub repository will be there. So we're going to clone that to GitHub to work with it. Get the path for the original files folder, and again, you're going to want to go to this original files, click on the 3 buttons, and do copy path. It's okay, I don't need that connected. And then you're going to paste that path right here inside the single quotes. So when you do this tutorial, there will be a set of original files, and this tutorial will go through and rename those files. Before you do that, I put some code in here for you to create a copy of the files and work on the copy. You always want to be careful. This was just a tutorial, it's low stakes. You always want to be careful working on original files, because if you make a mistake with Python, you can delete all of your original files very easily and accidentally. So it's often good to work on copies, and that way if you do make a mistake, you can just get rid of all the copies and start again with the originals and make a new copy. So that's what I have done here in this code block, which you will still have, is it makes a new directory called copy files and copies the files out of the original into the copy, and then you'll do the tutorial using that. I did give you some code to delete the copy files in case you want to delete, if you make a mistake and you want to just delete the copies and start over again, that will delete it, and it says to skip this step because if you create it and then delete it, it won't be there to work with. At that point, I've marked out when you want to start with the tutorial, and in the tutorial you'll see that he's just working on a Python script. It ends with a .py, and he has code, and he kind of goes back, he types out and runs it and shows you what it looks like, and then he'll go back and change that code. And what I want you to do is, rather than just going and putting the code into a cell and then going back and changing that code in the cell, is just make a new cell, and in any of these cells, if you click inside the cell and then you hover over the top or the bottom, you'll see that you can either add a text cell or a code cell above or below the cell you're on. And that's an easy way to make a new code cell. And so when he changes the code, rather than change it, just leave it and go down and make a new cell and put his new code in the new cell. And so I'll go ahead and delete. If you make a mistake, you can delete a cell. If you're selected in there, you can see over here on the right, there's a trash can, and we'll just get rid of that cell. So you'll see I went through and did some code and then ran it. So you'll want to run it and have your output showing. And I went through and followed this tutorial. And I'll delete these cells for the version of the notebook that is in there, so you can make your own cells and put your own code in. Often it's easy to copy the code from above and then paste it in the one below, and then just make the changes that he makes rather than retype everything. But up to you how you want to follow that, because typing the code in also is a good way to reinforce and remember it. And you'll see how these things unfold as you follow the tutorial. In the end, you're going to end up renaming the files to this other format that he talks about. So it's a good tutorial. We work with a lot of different files in informatics, so it's good to get comfortable, working with folders and files. So I actually like this tutorial quite a bit for just teaching you some basic skills. But in the end, you're going to rename things, and this shut down so it doesn't show it, but the new copy files will be renamed. So when you hit the bottom of the tutorial, and then you're going to follow along in the notebook, I'll leave these cells. You're going to check, here's some code just to check what the copied text looks like. And then you're actually going to push this to this updated files, rather than manually downloading them to your computer and then uploading them in GitHub. You're going to use Git to push that. So to do that, you'll need to get a personal access token, and I gave you the link here to, if you follow that link, it will take you to GitHub to do a new personal access token. And I do have a page that I had created, and you'll want to fill it out. I did do a screenshot here for you of what I did to fill that out. I just put in the name. It doesn't really matter what name you call it. You can pick an expiration date, and it has 7 days or 30 days. I just did a custom one of 1 day in case I happen to forget and not delete the one I did, because you're basically giving people access to your repository and to make changes. And you don't want to do that, unless you have people specifically selected. And all you need to do is check that first. There's a whole long list of check boxes, and you just need to check the first one. And then you can create your access token. And here's the one that I created. You'll want to copy that. Once you leave this page, you won't be able to get it again. And so what I suggest is just leave that while you're working with it. And then you'll want to come in and add username and email. And you want to use yours, the ones that you used when you set up your GitHub account. These are mine. Doesn't matter if you have those, because that's my username and email that I used to set it up, but you don't have passwords or the access tokens. So you want to put your username and email in there. And then, and you'll see these are all using some commands that are passed to the terminal. These are Git commands. And then Git status tells you, if you have any differences. And then we want to add our new files to our Git tracking. It doesn't have them because they're new. And these are the commands that will do that. These are going to be there. You're just going to basically run the code, but it's good for you to see this. And then you'll want to do this git push command. And you'll see that I've left the template up here of how this needs to be access. So you're going to have this personal access token here inside of the left and right angle brackets here, and then you're going to have your GitHub username that you used when you set up your GitHub account, and your repository name for your assignment repository is probably going to be the same as mine right here, and that will push your files, your copy files, to your GitHub repository. And at the time I'm recording this, those are still there. I'll delete those from this assignment repository. However, doing that push does not send this completed notebook to GitHub. So at the end, you'll want to export this notebook that you've created with your code and your output, because you want all your code and output showing to get full credit for this assignment. You go to File, Download, and download IPYNB. That's a download a Python, a Jupyter Notebooks Python notebook, and then you'll take that download and then upload it to your repository. Go to Upload Files, and you'll probably need to rename it to have a different name than this one. You can put completed or 3 or whatever name you want, and just upload that. And then you'll want to take your GitHub URL and submit that into Canvas for this assignment. So I just wanted to walk through that with you. This is a great way that you can try things out on GitHub. If you find tutorials online that aren't necessarily set up using GitHub, or set up using Google Colab, you could still try the tutorial out and do a lot of things. So this exercises a few different skills for you as you're learning how to use these cloud resources for Python programming. As always, post any questions in the discussion, and we can all work on these things together and get through them. And have a nice day.